Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Wild story out of Michigan sent to me by a lot of people. If you were a parent of a student at a particular school district and you posted things on social media, people from the school might monitor your social media posts and then complain to your employer and say, hey, did you see what your worker's posting on social media? And a woman got fired. And so she sued the school district and it settled. And it looks like they paid her because they were going to get in big trouble if they went to court. So parent reached a settlement with Rochester Community Schools over a firing scandal. And this is from WDIV Detroit, Channel 4, the NBC affiliate. Details behind the lawsuit filed against school district after parent fired from her job. A settlement's been reached between the Rochester Community Schools and a parent who accused the school board of getting her fired from her job over social media posts critical of the district's pandemic response. And this is an important note I'm going to point out here. It does not matter about COVID or your beliefs on COVID or whether you think the pandemic is real, not real, if you think the government's overreacting, underreacting. It doesn't matter. The point is that this woman has the right to go on social media and talk about things. And when the school district starts snooping and spying and then calling up her employer and going, look what she's posting here. What do they think could happen there? Why are they doing that? Are they trying to get her fired? So as many districts did when the pandemic struck, Rochester Community Schools switched to remote learning. The move was difficult for schools, of which many did not have the infrastructure ready to support that, and for students and parents who had to adjust to significant lifestyle change. So it was hard on everybody. A lot of people complained on social media. If you didn't know that, well, you need to get out more often, literally. In response, some Rochester school parents spoke out about how the district was handling all of this, and some of them made critical remarks on social media. One parent says her online comments got her fired from her job because a school board member intervened. So she filed a lawsuit last year, which has just been settled this past week. And here's what's going on. With the pandemic in full force, the woman, who's a mother of two, says she was concerned about how the online education experience would work with Rochester schools. She reportedly interacted within a Facebook group, a group on Facebook, discussing her concerns and her opinions about how the school district was responding to the pandemic and her desire for her kids to return to in-person classes. She's actually expressing sentiments that a lot of people held at that time, and by the way, still hold them to this day. Following those social media posts, the woman says she was fired from her marketing director position at her job. In a federal lawsuit filed in May of 2021, the mother claimed that the board for Rochester Community Schools saw the social media posts and reached out to her employer, sharing what they saw. She claims that a school board member called her employer, misrepresented her online statements, and got her fired. The filing originally claimed that the phone call was made by board president, but the woman, the plaintiff, now says the deputy superintendent who did this. We do know that she was told that her employer did get a phone call from a board member, and we know the termination followed thereafter, says her attorney, Deborah Gordon. Deborah Gordon is a very, very well-known, well-renowned, well-respected attorney in Michigan who specializes in employment cases. And she pops up in the news from time to time, usually because she's got a very good settlement or won a big case. She says, we also know other parents, employers, we believe, have been contacted as well. Now, the woman says, I was in shock. I think I was actually in tears. I was so upset that it would come up to that and that someone would actually reach out to my employer. I felt violated. The mother of two was reportedly sent a cease and desist letter by the district due to her social media posts. My client was nothing but polite and respectful online, the attorney says. This district is thin-skinned with an inability to follow the law that they're literally hiring lawyers at taxpayer expense to send cease and desist letters, not just to my client, but to others. The complaint claims that the district spent time and resources directing staff to monitor parents' Facebook groups, look for those who are vocally opposed to what the district is doing, and compile reports on them for school board members. Depositions also reportedly revealed that the person who was fired wasn't the only parent whose employer was called by district officials. So you know that there's a woman who works for a company. Presumably she gets paid. It's her livelihood. That's what she does. And you call up her boss and try to get her in trouble for some reason. Why are you doing that? It looks like you're trying to retaliate against her for something. And instead of dealing with her in debate, like you ought to, you call her boss and try to get her fired. Now you might say, I wasn't trying to get her fired. I was just simply pointing out the beliefs she has. Well, if her boss was that concerned, they would monitor her Facebook posts. They may have already been doing that for all you know. Maybe they did, who knows? But if you insert yourself into that relationship and break up that relationship, it's going to be tortious interference with an advantageous business relationship or tortious interference contract. But you can be sued for that. And I suspect that that was one of the counts in this complaint in federal court. Now, keep in mind that the attorney says my client was nothing but polite and respectful online. This district is thin-skinned with an inability to follow the law, that they're literally hiring attorneys at the taxpayer's expense. So the company for which the woman worked has issued a statement regarding the lawsuit, and they simply said that we were recently made aware of the allegations against the Rochester School Board. It is our policy to not discuss current or former employees. Because we were not named in the lawsuit, we are unable to comment on it at this time. However, this incident has caused a great deal of disturbance to our operations with incoming threatening calls, emails, and social media posts against our property and employees. While I understand we are in a time where free speech is being challenged, and I am empathetic with the concern, we must now concentrate on the safety and well-being of our employees. And so a lot of people, apparently, when they saw the story and saw the woman got fired, were hounding the school district, but they're also hounding the woman's old employer. And they're saying, look, we weren't even named in the lawsuit. So after the lawsuit was filed last year, the Rochester Community School District issued a statement saying that the woman's claims were false and unfounded, the ones they just settled. The allegations in the complaint you have referred to are both false and unfounded. We wish we could discuss it in detail, but that is not possible now because litigation. What we can tell you is that we all realize that this has been a trying year for many of our local school community members, and we recognize that our families may be dealing with this pandemic in different ways. In addition to the district calling parents employers, other parents in the community have claimed that district officials have been targeting parents who are critical of the district and the school board. After this woman's story went public, Local 4 received messages from several other parents who shared their experiences with the board and the administration there in Rochester. One parent said that in 2020, the superintendent called the police on her at her home after receiving what they felt was a threatening message signed with her name. The mother was not charged, largely because the message had a different email address and a different phone number, neither of which were hers. Still, that mother had been an administrator on a large Facebook page with other parents called Parent Advocates for Rochester Community Schools, which has been active for years on various issues. She says that at one point, group members requested a town hall and wanted to address the board regarding their concerns, but she was met with intimidation tactics instead. So the lawsuit settled, and the Associated Press apparently got access to some of it. Earlier this week, they reached a settlement regarding the lawsuit. Now, details regarding how much was paid was not publicly released. The district issued a statement following the settlement saying that litigation details cannot be discussed, but officials are working to be responsive to the community. The parents in the case mutually agreed to resolve the matter. As part of the settlement, the parties agreed that the only public comment they would make is that they agreed to settle their differences. Consequently, we are not able to discuss it. Rochester Community Schools values the input of its community members. As a responsible and respectful listener, we pay attention to newspaper, radio, TV news, and social media to make sure we are responsive to the community. Rochester Community Schools' focus continues to be on education, growth, safety, and wellness of our students, staff, and school community. And that's the official statement that was released after the lawsuit settled. So what we have here is a case where a woman who's a parent has a couple kids who go to school in Rochester. She's not happy with how the school is operating. And I got news for you. That happens everywhere in the world right now. The last year and a half, there are debates everywhere about how to handle this. And I don't care which side you're on, you've got to understand there are other sides, okay? And that is what we call a debate, okay? It's a debate in the public sphere, okay? So we've got this lively debate going on where people on one side say this, people on the other side say, no, we disagree, we say this. This versus this. There's debates, and it can be everything from masks to vaccinations to whatever. There's all kinds of different things being debated here. So someone who's discussing that on a Facebook page, they're not discussing it on school grounds. They're not a student, they're a parent. And they're also discussing this with other like-minded people who simply want to discuss this. For the school board or anybody who works at a school to go in and look at that stuff and screen grab it and start sending it to the employers of the people in the group going, look what these people are doing. Oh, they're causing all kinds of a ruckus. Why are you doing that? Is that your job? Because the one thing you have to remember is that if you are living your life, you got up this morning and you brushed your teeth. That's not your job. That's something you just do because it's part of your life. I'm talking about what you do for a living, your job, okay? So let's suppose that you have a job. So I don't know, you are a principal of a school, or you're the head of a school board. And let's say that that's a job, okay? You go to your job and you do your job. What are the various elements of your job? Is one of the elements of your job monitor the social media posts of people who are critical of you and then try to get them fired to teach them a lesson? Is that part of your job? And by the way, I've mentioned before that my family has more educators in it than any other occupation. So if you said, Steve, I've known people who have all kinds of auto workers in their family. I've known people who have all kinds of lawyers in their family. I've sat at a dinner table with like 9 lawyers at it who are all related to each other, okay? But my family, it's educators. So I often say, my father was a teacher, my mother was a teacher, my grandfather was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher. I've been a teacher. A lot of teachers in my family. But I'm actually glossing over the fact that my father was an administrator. Now, he did teach, and he was an administrator in a school district. So it was education. But the last part of his career, he wasn't teaching. He was running a school district. He was running a school district. And so the same way that somebody who lives in a household with a bunch of attorneys in it is going to hear all kinds of attorney talk going on around the clock, I heard all kinds of administrative talk going on around the clock around my house. All kinds of stuff. School board meetings and millages and school buses and contract negotiations. This was my daily background noise around the house. And now, my father retired before social media became a thing. But I assure you that my father would not have spent his time on the clock reading Facebook posts in closed groups and then saying, I'm going to see if I can get this person here fired because she's critical of what I'm doing. I think my dad would have recognized that part of his job, running a school district, is going to necessarily involve some people who don't agree with him. His job was to do his job as well as he could, and he had certain goals he was trying to meet and certain things he was trying to do. That was his job. And I don't think that if he was there today that he'd say, oh, by the way, my job now includes monitoring social media critical of me. When you phrase it that way, you see how stupid this is. You see how crazy it is. That's not your job to be monitoring critical social media. And the attorney, Deborah Gordon, is right. She goes, these people are thin-skinned. If you can't take criticism, I've got news for you. One place you don't want to be is running a school district. I've known people, other people, who've run school districts. I've known other teachers. I've known principals. I've known all kinds of people in education. They get criticized. In any time, whether it's COVID or not. You could go back 10 years from right now. Go back 10 years. I don't know what was happening 10 years ago in terms of big things affecting schools. I don't know off the top of my head. Doesn't matter. There were parents out there who would show up at the meetings and tell the administrators, you guys don't know what you're doing. You're doing it wrong. It's going to happen all the time. It's part of your job. That is part of your job. Taking it is part of your job. Responding to it by trying to get these people fired is not part of your job. So I hope the settlement was lucrative. I hope that it makes up for what the woman lost by losing her job. But I also hope it serves as a wake-up call to the board at Rochester Community Schools, as well as other schools who might consider doing something like this. Because that's not how you do your job. You go to work, do your job. You do not try to get your critics fired. That's crazy. So like I said, from WDIV Detroit Channel 4, parent reaches settlement with Rochester Community Schools over the firing scandal. Sent to me by a whole host of people. Thank you very much. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Edit your life frequently and ruthlessly. It's your masterpiece, after all.